never thought I'd live to see it.
I'm Charles Walt, and I worked at the Steel 33.5 years, and that's who I am.
I started at Bethlehem Steel February the 7th, 1951.
I started February 14th, 1951.
I was 18. I just come out of high school, and I started at the Steel in 1964, October.
I started in the 21st of July, 1965.
Yeah, I started in 1966.
And I started working in Bethlehem Steel in September of 1969.
I started to work in the steel company in July of 1937.
When I started in the Bethlehem Steel, it was probably full employment, over 20,000.
I'd say close to 18 to 20,000.
When I started working at the Steel, I'd say there was about 12 to 15,000 people working there.
But at the steel company must have been about 12,000. Anyway, maybe 14.
Well, when I started working at the steel company, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 13,000 people working there. It covers roughly a 10-mile stretch.
Change a shift on the main gate. It was like Grand Central Station, and people are in and out. Yeah. It was amazing.
It was a lot bigger than I was used to. You know, I walked in there and man, there was hundreds of people coming out. Night shift, you're going in on day shift, you know, and it's like cattle coming in and out of the place.
That next peak is too high for you to climb. Do it anyway. Afraid that they will laugh and start to cry. Do it anyway. Yeah, yeah.
But at that time there, where you walked in the plant and you got a job from the superintendent, you didn't go through the employment office. You were supposed to go through the employment office. You walked down the valley tracks and you got in the plant, Lehigh Valley tracks, railroad tracks, and you got in the plant, you went to see the boss. And if he liked your looks, well, he gave you a slip of paper, then you went over to the employment office.
My pop got a job in 1912 with Bethlehem Steel.
Oh, my family has a long history of steel. My father worked here, my uncles. My mother worked in a Bethlehem Steel alongside her sister during war years in the 40s. So we go back a long time.
So on down the line, my oldest brother Steve, John, George, Frank, Mike, Andy, Al, myself, and Emil. All worked for Bethlehem Steel Corporation.
Well, I started in the plant as an apprentice boy, and we put down in the rigger's shop in the Saucon plant.
When I first started as an apprentice, I was getting a nickel less than labor. Labor was getting $1.29, I was getting 5 cents less because I was an apprentice.
Like I say, I was down at Saucon plant, and down there where they had the open hearts down there, and I guess it was 32 open hearts, there was 32 stacks up there in the air, and the smoke and dirt, fire and everything else was coming out of those stacks, and it was, It was just something awesome, that's all. And then the soaking pits was right in back of the bigger building down there. There was another fiery pit. When he opened up the doors in the soaking pits, the fire used to come flying out, and they put an ingot in there, and the sparks used to fly all over the place and everything else. And for a kid, well, it was awesome. It was something to see.
My first experience coming in a Bethlehem Steel, fresh out of high school, working here, you got alongside your father or your uncles or people that you knew, and they seemed to take you in hand and showed you how to stay out of trouble's way. Because every time you turned around, there was a whistle blowing or a siren going off, and that meant get out of the way. And if you weren't watching yourself, you could get hurt very easily just walking around in a place.
What amazed me is they would go 3 shifts every day of the week. Where's all this stuff going? And just that fact alone, was hard for me to believe. And all the big machinery around you, it's just very dangerous. I mean, it seemed to me that you better know what you're doing, or you could get hurt pretty bad in there.
What impressed me most was how they can work that metal, that steel, when it's hot. I mean, how they can make it from ore to run like water and bend it and shape it any way they want to, and then when it cools off, you can't touch it. It's amazing what they can do with that.
What amazed me most about the steel was the enormity of, the size of it. Well, there's no question about the most incredible thing about the steel is just the overall size, just to start with. I mean, it's just the size of the plant was overwhelming at that point, and then it seemed like every facility you went into again was just more incredible. Everything was huge everywhere you went.
Well, the steel company was big. It had to be big from the beginning to the end. Bring all the material in there, the raw materials, and then melt it down and make the iron or the pig iron and the steel, and then pour it and make the shapes and roll it, and not only that, and at the press for it, where they pounded those into your rotors and all that kind of stuff in the machine shop, take it all down and work it. Finished products come out there. It was a big operation. Really big.
You're scared of he'll say that they will laugh at you. Do it anyway. You're scared of what I say, 'cause it might be true. Yeah, do it anyway. Come on, do it anyway. Do it anyway.
Some of those older guys, they didn't have any sense of humor, but
Well, working with the old timers down there at that time, it was very difficult for me because they were Hungarians, Slavish, Polish, ethnic background people, and they spoke their language. And I only spoke English. And I had a very difficult time.
Some older guys, they didn't want you to learn anything. They kept you in the dark because I guess they felt threatened. And just hearing stories from the old timers back then, that's the way it always was. Everybody protected their own little domain.
A lot of them, I think, maybe did feel that way, that, you were a young guy coming in, gonna kick them out and take their job.
Most of them, I would say, a good 75, 80% were respectful to you, and you gave it right back to them, the respect. They asked you to do something, you did it. If you didn't like it, you still did it.
Most of them treated you pretty good. You know, there were some that, you know, that they were just a little different. I think they had in their mind that you were like maybe taking their job, or you were eventually going to take their job and push them out. And they were a little tough, like when you were on a job, to let you know what you should do. And some of them helped you out a lot.
Some of the old guys, they didn't like you, and other guys did.
When the blast furnace went down, they didn't send the young snot-noses over there to do the job because they didn't know how. They'd send them along, but they sent the old-timers that knew what to do.
The guys that worked there, they were more than just steel workers. I mean, I think they could do anything if they wanted to, because they're crafty enough.
Oh, Joe Lieber, he was another guy, he was the burner. He couldn't speak English very much, but boy, he could really handle a acetylene torch. He could burn right on the line, and good, with very little slag underneath.
But they showed you the ropes. I think they really taught us a lot.
As far as getting along with the older fellow, with the employees down, the old people down there, good. They were good. They were good to me, and they taught me a lot.
Working with older people, there's a lot of knowledge that is always there, and once you win the confidence, it all comes out, and they'll teach you a lot of things.
And these old timers, they could really handle a rivet gun and drive rivets. And they taught me how to do that too. They were good mechanics, damn good mechanics.
Not all of them, but some of them were afraid. You're gonna learn the job, and you're gonna be telling them what to do one day. Which, that's life. That's time in life. And did it happen? Guaranteed it happened. The men that I worked for and under, it became my turn. How did they take it? I told you before. You respected them when you were a young snot-nosed kid. Now they respected you.
I wanna go to places man has never been, and I wanna show the world what special really means.
The steel company was a very dangerous and complicated place of operations.
You have to work smart and you have to work safe if you want to come back tomorrow. If not, you get banged up. And there's a lot of people that got banged up, not because through their fault, but accidents do happen. And we all know through some of the accidents that we had that we lost a lot of nice people.
Everybody was safety conscious in that, you had to be.
You constantly had to be concerned about getting electrocuted, problems with falling from heights, moving machinery.
Like if you're on a job and you're up in the air and stuff, you have to rely on your buddy. So you had to get along pretty good. If you didn't get along, I think that would probably hurt you in the long run.
You had to trust the fella next to you, or the fella in back of you, or wherever you were, because he had to trust you.
They never shut the place down for you to do any work, but you worked in between them and you watched your brother as you worked along.
Production was everything. The production people, that was your headache. They didn't care. They only worried about getting their product rolled.
LKW was up there and had a big crevice like that, and somehow it fell down. And I'm telling you what, it missed me about that much. Right down, boom. And it was a nice sized thing. If it hit me in the head, that'd been the end of the moon.
And at that time, way back then, you didn't have any hard hats on either. All you had on was a hat, period, or a cap. Mostly hats. When they came around with hard hats, why, oh, we hated like hell to wear them things when we first got them. Gee, they were awful. But the orders were wear them, so we got used to them, like everybody else did.
Joe Straner, he was like a mother hen to me. He always watched me. Rich, watch this. Checky, watch that. Checky, watch this. Watch your foot. Watch your arm. And he wasn't doing it because you didn't know. He was doing it because he knew what could happen. That's why he told you, back away, do this, watch that. And that's how you learned.
Well, danger is what you make it. That's what I think, anyway. It's dangerous in the steel company no matter where you go. And you always have to be alert. You always have to be watching out not only for yourself, but for your buddy alongside you and hoping that he's watching out for you.
You're scared to let your friends depend on you. Do it anyway. You might surprise the both of you and come through. Come on now, do it anyway. Do it anyway.
Most of us never really thought of it, falling or anything. We just get up there and do the jobs.
I like to have something that I could hold on to. I wasn't afraid about, but I just was cautious. I couldn't fly, and I knew it.
But it seemed like we were always working inside in the summer when it was hot, when you'd sooner be in there in the winter. And in the winter, you did the shutdowns on the outside stuff when you'd sooner be inside. It always seemed it was always backwards, but that's the way it was.
The open hearts, they were a lot of hot work, a lot of shift work, and it was altogether different a way of making steel. You had guys running around on the floor. You had a first helper and a second helper, then you had a crew, and these guys would go along whatever furnace needed the limestone or the ore thrown in at the time to make a good heat. They were there to help the first helper and the second helper. A lot of bull work they had there. Big wheelbarrows, probably half of the people couldn't move it when they had it loaded up with maybe 300-400 pounds in it.
We worked a lot of open hearths, the old open hearths on the roofs and the hot. It was a lot of hot jobs in there.
Oh, geez. Down in the cellar in the open hearth. Hot, dirty.
It was tough work and hot.
Ingot mold is just like a mine. It's like a doggone coal mine, maybe worse.
Oh, the salt house was one of the worst. Oh, I hated that. Yeah. I had to wear a respirator in there. That was really bad.
I didn't care to go climbing around, hanging up in someplace by my fingernails, I'll tell you that.
Every time you got a blast furnace, it was in the wintertime. Freeze your damn cold up there, I'll tell you.
Too cold, you couldn't stand it. The cold got so cold it hurt your head, you couldn't even see straight.
We started working on a blast furnace back then. If you got on a night shift, you stayed on a night shift. You got a middle shift, you stayed on the middle shift. So how lucky you were for the draw of what you were doing at the time. And it was usually for 25 to 30 days.
We worked 7 days a week that time. I think it was from November to February without a day off, unless you took it off yourself. And sometimes, like years ago when we had blast furnaces like that, you could get stuck on a midnight shift and never get off. They didn't just take you off, You were on midnight, you stayed there.
We started the week before Labor Day, and we didn't finish up on that furnace until Memorial Day. And we didn't have a day off in between. We worked straight through, including Christmas.
Blast furnace goes down to Lehigh plant. Everybody went to Lehigh plant.
A rebuild or a blast furnace breakdown or a major breakdown at Lehigh, men from Saucon, and there were men from the coke work that you didn't even know their name, you didn't even know who they were, came to Lehigh to work. And as the work progressed, that you didn't need the men anymore, they went back to Saucon or to the coke work.
I think our record, we worked 159 days without a day off. And in that time, we worked 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts.
It's just tough work. And after a while, when you're 18, it's not bad. because you're tough and strong and you can do anything. But as you get older, in the middle age, in the 30s, 40s, it gets tough doing our kind of work.
Well, there was no hoists or no cranes or anything like that like you have today. If you wanted to pull something up, you rigged up a block and fall and you pull it up by hand.
Middle of the night, you're out there rigging up. I mean, you can't see. They got lighting, but it's still, they're pulling up the 1-inch cable. You're sitting out on a couple of lousy planks that, you know, you're tied off, but it's the wind blowing, cold. It was a lot of work.
We changed those bell levers up there. There was no rigging up there. No rigging at all above you. All that was up there was the stars. And you, you had to build your own rigging off of the bell.
When you were in those rust furnaces, when your shoes start smoking, they put the wooden shoes on you, the planks are burning, and you're in there trying to work.
Fire come flying out of the holes on the top of the batteries where they filled them up, and that was no fun. And then when they pushed a battery of coke out, fire was flying all over the place too.
Said a friend to a friend one day, was a man who passed away. St. Peter met him at the gate. Pete said, walk with me if you will, I'll take you to the house you built. The man said, I can't wait. Past a mansion made of stone, but with each new house he's shown, they get smaller by degrees.
Some of the jobs that we enjoyed doing the most in the steel company were new construction, which we did a lot of.
The jobs that I liked best down there was erection jobs, new steel, putting something together. Young fella, that was good, that was nice.
Moving cranes, we moved quite a few cranes in the plant with big rigs, working with rigs, putting cranes up, taking them down. Yeah, I enjoyed working like that.
Oh, some of the best things in the jobs that I had in the plant, I would say I was the building inspector for quite a while. In that job, I was more or less on my own.
I liked working on the blast furnace quite a bit because, for one thing, you knew you were going to get be the same place, and there was always overtime in the job. If you wanted to make any extra money, all you had to do was say yes when they asked you, and they were asking all the time.
I always liked new construction jobs. That was my, we always fought to get them jobs.
Working on a new construction was nice because it was clean. No dirt. You had to blow off all the runs and blow out the rivets, burn the bolts, and take it apart to build it back up. The new construction, you go down there and all the materials laying there. Usually the holes are put in it. If you had to doctor up a few, well, that was easy. And it was clean work. It wasn't all, and Wilson was outside. I liked doing that.
Days came when you did the worst job, and when it came to do an excellent job, wow, it was so much better you didn't even think this is the best job or that was the worst job. You didn't. You kept them in unison with everything else.
Stop in front of a two-room shack. Pete said, I hope you're happy with that. The man said, how can this be? Pete said, that's all the lumber. That's all the lumber. That's all the lumber you said. Looks like the builder, man, he's got your number. That's all the lumber you said.
We often used to say that, I don't know how the hell this place is going to run with these young kids that are coming in here, because they got earrings in their nose and their ears, and they got pigtails hanging down the back of their head and everything else. And but it still operated after we left.
Somebody has to do the work, so the younger guy coming in, his day is going to come too when he's going to be the older man, and he'll be breaking somebody else in or trying to teach them the points that he's learned over the years.
That was a circus. that was when those young guys they were something else. Anything went. Yeah, there was like I say, we had a good bunch of guys. And then, but they were workers, and then there wasn't any job that they wouldn't do.
Well, we all have our idiosyncrasies, I mean. But on the whole, I would say they were good. They were all right. Even you was, Bruce.
The idea that if everything keeps going the way it should, the older guy retires, when you get old, the younger guy comes in and he picks up the slack, and he does the same thing that I did when I was 18. I picked up the slack in a gang for the older guy, you know, and well, it never happened for me because they never hired anymore. The youngest people might have been 30, 35 years old, and that was your helper now. And that's how the steel continued until today. It just didn't work out for us.
When you come in, you were the young guy, and you figured eventually along the line there's young guys coming. We were still the young guys when we retired. There was no young guys that carried the ball. You were still the young guy doing all the work.
The man didn't know what to say. The guy was blown away. He said, "You mean this is what I deserve?" He said, "I'm afraid it's so. It's too late, but now you know. Should have done better work." You may not.
We had all kind of guys. There were a lot of nuts.
I think there was people of every personality you can imagine within that steel company.
We always had a time for horseplay, I would say. You know, we had our fun. You know, different guys we'd always be picking on, or they'd be picking on somebody.
Everybody drank. I mean, I didn't drink. Everybody drank. You weren't a rigger if you didn't drink. Christ.
If you couldn't take it, that would be the big thing, you know, that they'd pick on you more, it seemed like. So you had to learn, if you give it out, you got to take it, you know, when it's your turn to get the business.
And usually the guys that didn't take it, they got it more, or it's always the guy that liked to dish it out that didn't like it. It's one of them deals, but
It just happened that you get nicknames.
I used to call everybody Johnny. Here comes Johnny. Then he used to get after me. Here comes Johnny. That was me, Richie.
everybody had a name, but it never was a real name. You might go through the whole career not knowing the guy's real name. It just was crazy, you know. We had guys like named Silver Joe, you know, Doc Stroll, and Hesse.
Oh, Silver Joe. Oh, he attempted going out the main gate with a can of silver paint. Now, he had it tucked underneath his clothes somehow. And as he's approaching the main gate to go out, something happened to the can of silver paint that it fell down on the ground and spilled out.
He had some silver paint he wanted to take home, and he put it in a jar and put it on his basket in the washroom. And when he let the basket down, somehow the jar broke.
So, okay, you think that's the end of the story? No. When he comes back into work the next morning, all you heard was, "Here comes Silver Joe. Here comes Silver Joe." Now, there were guys in the washroom, they didn't know, who the heck is Silver Joe? They looked, they knew who it was. But where's the Silver Joe?
And silver paint went over all his stuff and his clothing, and that from that day on, his name was Silver Joe.
Now the story went around. Next thing you went from Lehigh, went to Sauk, and he went to the coke work. Whenever you saw Joe Kreinick, that was his proper name. No, it wasn't Joe Kreinick, it was Silver Joe. So Silver Joe stayed with him for the rest of his life that he worked for Bethlehem Steel.
There was another astronaut.
He was hooking something on the crane and got his glove caught on it, and he went down the run, hanging on by his glove. Not, you know, nobody saw him. Even the craneman didn't see him. And then the guy saw him and lowered him down, and that's where he got his name, Astronaut.
One day he was hooking up something with the craneman there, and he hooked the piece up, and I guess he told the guy to take it up, and somehow the big hook got caught in his burning glove, hooked in his glove, and before he was yelling, before anything, the craneman was taking the hook up and taking him down the other end of the shop, and he was hanging from the hook with the glove, so that's where he got his name, Astronaut John.
He hooks his glove into the hook of the crane, and he gives the signal to the crane man to take it up. And at that time, the popular thing was to be an astronaut. And here goes astronaut John, the crane man is taking him up. He didn't take him up too far, maybe like about 10 feet. And down he brings him back down.
That I remember too. He got his glove caught in the hook and he went for a ride up in the air. And that could be the reason why he got the name astronaut.
Well, I was with the astronaut when he got his name. Well, they were tearing down the mills up at east end of the plant near New Street, and he was in the railroad car unhooking the scrap, you know. And you know, John, he's a well, they lowered us down, and he's giving the craneman a signal to take up, and the hook got caught right in his glove, and off he goes. And he's giving the guy isn't even looking at him. No, he's giving him signals to go, let him down, let him down. They finally saw him and let him down, and from that time on, that was his name, the astronaut.
He was always playing the piano. He'd have his hands in his pocket. You could see them in their pocket. They were moving. He'd have them out. The fingers were moving like a piano player. With gloves on or not, they were moving. He was all right guy.
Well, they call him the Big O.
I was Crazy John.
My nickname, Snapper. Now and then I'd fly off the handle and snap out, you know, depending on what was going on at the day.
Jack was the kind of guy that something always went wrong for him. Something always was out of character.
Now, Snuffy was always sniffing where every place he went. Not because he was smelling for gas or anything, but he was always sniffing every place he went. So one rigger says to him, "Hey, Snuffy, Sniffy, what the, you know what I mean? What are you doing?" He says, "I'm smelling for something." That was it. Snuffy stopped though. That's how he got his handle.
The biggest thing about Jack was the stories he could tell. He was a great storyteller.
You think, because you're in your department, you see all the people that we had, a lot of them seemed like nuts and stuff, but you go through everywhere, any outfit in the steel company was like that. Our Coke Works, I couldn't believe the guys horsed around more than we did.
I would say it was like a big family,
It was always working together. You spend sometimes more time with the men than you did at home with your own family. You did. Even if you didn't work overtime or extra time. You were here in the plant.
Especially in the early years, you spend more time with them than you spend with your family.
You were like a family in the plant, and when you got out of the plant, well, you still continued that there.
You're not only friends inside the plant, but you do a couple things. You find their interests are the same on the outside, and you start going fishing and hunting with guys. And
I wanna be. Well, hear my heart, my kindly. Love that Therese. God, show me how to be. Show me how to be. Show me. Show me. Show me how to be. I wanna be different. I wanna be different. I wanna be different. Just like everybody else. I wanna be.
everything was first class. They always wanted to give you a good product going out the door.
There is nothing better than buying it from Bethlehem Steel. That's why, how do you think they've been staying in the steel business all their life? Because they make nothing but the best.
Some of the work that we did, when you stopped and looked at it after you had it accomplished, after you did it, you wonder, how the hell did that thing ever, how did we ever do that, you know?
Nothing was too big that we couldn't handle, though. You know, we did it all.
How does it make me feel? On top of the world.
They forged the steel for the Great White Fleet. Built the big battleships, World War II.
Well, you feel proud that, you know, when you see your insignia of Bethlehem, made in Bethlehem Steel, you know, that made you feel good. Hey, I worked there, you know, one of those.
Well, I feel good about it, you know, just knowing that Bethlehem had a lot of influence in the world. Hey, from the Golden Gate Bridge to World War II, the whole bit, you know, I mean, I feel good about it. I feel proud, you know, that I was a steel worker.
Well, I think the riggers were the best of the bunch. And I think we were a little underpaid for the work we did, because there was a lot of time you were risking your life there, day after day.
We were always proud of the job we could get done. That's, I think, most of the guys that worked in there felt that way, that, you know, you go home, you felt, boy, I did that, you know, I accomplished this today.
This plant was ours because we were doing basically all the jobs that nobody else wanted to do. And they were big jobs: blast furnace, ingot mold repairs, I mean, mill repairs. I mean, we did everything. Anything that was too hard for somebody else to do, I think we got the job.
When something had to go and they had to get it fixed, they knew who to call. They called the 409 department.
We felt proud of that job. I mean, who else is doing this work, you know? You're putting blast furnaces together and that, nobody else is doing that, you're doing it.
Coming from a little hick town like Bethlehem, you know, you gotta feel proud that you're part of America.
Back to this neighborhood, there'll be a gigantic pile of wood. I say, what's this? I say, you tell me, that's all the lumber. Oh, that's your lumber. That's all the lumber you say. But the big boss helps you hammer it all together. That's all the lumber you say.
From where I still live today, looking out my back porch, I could see at that time there were 7 blast furnaces that they had going. At the present time, there's only, well, they're not running now at all.
Today they're not rolling any steel there. Now I probably got my answer now. Where was all this steel going at that time? I guess it was building the whole world up. I don't, you know, putting big buildings up all over.
I would have liked to seen a company keep going. I'm sure there's a market out there for everything that we've done here. But times are changing.
It was hard. I mean, not only it's your livelihood, but to see everybody losing probably good paying jobs, and I think it helped the Lehigh Valley a lot. And I don't think they're ever going to see that again.
It's a lot of good years working there. We had some really enjoyable times.
There's days that you meet somebody and it's always, you remember this, remember that, and you remember good times.
Gone. Everything's gone. It's hard to believe.
In the long run, I can't see it being this way, but it's done. They closed it up. I mean, I helped put the gates up to close it, so.
I was like maybe 12, 13, in that neighborhood. And I didn't live too far from Bethlehem Steel, south side of Bethlehem. And in the drop forge, which was along Daly Avenue, they were working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when you're trying to sleep and you hear banging, you know, the forge is forging pieces of steel to make whatever the customer wants. And you heard this constantly, constantly, constantly. So I get up and I'm sitting on my bed, and Pop was going to the bathroom, I guess. You know, and he asked me, Richie, he says, what's the matter? You don't feel good? No, I says, Pop, I'm okay. It's just that the noise that I hear, that pounding and pounding and pounding. So he says to me, he says, Richie, he says, you'll be happy. When you hear it. Because if you don't hear it, you're going to cry.